This is the Aunty and Brain Tumours talk show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Aunty and Brain Tumours talk show on podcast.
Hi, I'm Kat. I was diagnosed with a glioblastoma multiforme on Friday the 12th of June 2020, which it started off with just some dull headaches that I was experiencing in about February of that year. Unlucky for us, that's when COVID decided to come to the UK, so we were all sent to work from home. So my headaches gradually got worse over sort of March and April into May. I wondered whether it was because I was in a different office environment, for want of a better word. I was working from home. I was using a different desk, different lighting, a different desk chair. You know, maybe I wasn't having the correct light for daylight and things like that. But it was about April when I was getting I could hear my heart throbbing in my left ear. And I thought, that's a bit strange. So I phoned the GP and had to explain the symptoms over the phone, which wasn't very easy to do. And from what I told them, they said, oh, that's an ear infection. We'll prescribe you some antibiotics and that will be gone absolutely fine. So went to pick up the antibiotics, started taking them. For about 3 days, the headaches absolutely just disappeared. And I was thinking, oh, that's great. It's worked, you know. But then after that, the headaches returned. They were getting slightly worse at that point. But I thought, well, I better finish taking the antibiotics before I ring the GP again, because I'll probably get into trouble for not finishing the antibiotics. So about a week after I'd finished taking the antibiotics, I rang them again, spoke to a different GP who diagnosed tension headaches. He said, oh yeah, you've got tension headaches. We can prescribe you something called amitriptyline, which I've now learned is quite a universal nerve painkiller. So I went to go and pick those up. He said, take 1 a day. That did nothing. Take 2 a day. That did nothing. I was up to 3 a day. My husband and I were thinking, this is silly. It's not doing anything. It's not getting rid of any of the pain. It's not making me feel any better. So another phone call and the GP said, come to the surgery. I want to see you. So we did. My husband had to battle to get through the front door with me. He said, my wife's not well. I'm not leaving her by herself. You can see that she's not well. Went to see the GP. He wanted to prod all around here and behind my ears. And he looked my husband in the eye and said, I'm not concerned. There's nothing wrong with her. Man to man, this was as well. So you can kind of think, okay, he's very certain of this. So back home we went, carried on taking the amitriptyline. I think I was on 4 a day by then, and the pain just wasn't going away. It was getting worse to the point where I was in so much pain. My husband would ask me something or say, oh, come and look at this or something, because we were both working from home, and I wouldn't be able to move. I wouldn't be able to answer him. I just could not do anything until that pain had subsided. It could have been anything from 10 seconds to 5 minutes or something, where I just had this unbelievable pain that I cannot describe in my head. This got worse and worse and worse. And it was Friday the 12th of June in 2020. I said to my husband, I'm going to go and make some lunch. And I had to sit at the top of the stairs because my head was suddenly filled with pain, could not move, couldn't do anything. Tears were streaming down my face because I was in that much pain. And my husband looked at me and he said, if that happens again today, I'm calling for an ambulance, because something really isn't right here. And of course, it happened again. Just as I was finishing work at about 5:30, turning all the sockets off under my desk, my head just pretty much exploded, for want of a better word. Exploded. And my husband was just like, no, that's it. I'm ringing 999, getting an ambulance to come and see what's going on, because something definitely isn't right. And a St. John ambulance turned up. I believe they were helping during COVID because it was very busy and things. And 2 lovely people came into the living room where I was sitting and sort of got me to follow their finger with my eyes and checking on my blood pressure, my heart rate and things like that. And they sort of looked at me and they were like, no, something's not quite right here. We're going to take you to A&E and just, you know, get you checked out and see what's what kind of thing. So My husband obviously wasn't allowed in the ambulance with me because of lockdown and everything like that. So he followed the ambulance in the car, sat in the car park for I don't know how long. The time has no meaning when you're in A&E. So I could have been there for a couple of hours, or it could have been 6 hours. I really can't honestly say now how long it was. But I was ferried into A&E, had lots of bloods taken from me, ferried to another section. A lady came up to me and said, "We don't understand why your GP surgery didn't send you for a CT scan." And I was so out of it by then, I just kind of shrugged my shoulders. And she said, "Bear with me." Because I'll go and see if they're available now. So she came back to me and walked with me from A&E up to where the CT scans took place, stayed there with me, walked back with me, found me a really nice comfortable armchair to sit in, and she said, "Right, stay there and we'll wait for the results." Again, I don't know how much longer afterwards, she called me into a side room where there was another lady in there, and they both said to me, "Is anyone here with you? Is anyone waiting in the car park?" And that's when I said, "Well, my husband's out there, but I don't know where he's been able to park." And so I got him on his mobile. He met them at the A&E door and they escorted him through. And then that's when they told us both, yeah, the CT scanner's shown up something. Yeah, it's not good news. It's shown up a tumour in your head, which explains the pain. So for about a minute, I burst into tears because it was shocking to hear, but also a relief that someone had finally got an answer to my pain. And after about a minute, I sort of dried my eyes, and it was like, right, what happens next? Let's get this sorted. And they said, "Yeah, you guys stay here. We're organising ambulance transport to take you to John Radcliffe over in Oxford. And they've got a more specialist unit over there. And so my husband and I could stay in this little side room and not have to deal with all the chaos that might have been going on at A&E. And what the best thing that actually they did for us, a girl popped her head through just to make sure that we were all okay. And she looked at us, and can't tell you what hour it was. It was probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And she looked at us and she said, "When did you guys last eat?" And it was like, "Oh, lunchtime. We haven't had anything since then." So she said, "I'll see what I can find." And she came back with sandwiches. And no joke, they were the best sandwiches we had ever had. We were so grateful that she sort of, popped her head through and decided, no, you guys need some food. And she brought us some water as well. So we were really grateful for that. And so it was about 4:15. I was ferried across in the back of an ambulance over to John Radcliffe Hospital. The journey took about an hour. And as soon as I got there, I was sent straight for an MRI scan because they'd only got the CT scan that I'd had at A&E in Northampton to go by. So they needed a more sort of clearer images of where the brain tumour was in my head. While I was waiting for the results of that to come through, I was shown where my bed was on the ward and things, and I just fell asleep. I was asleep apparently for 2.5 hours, just straight on kind of thing. And I woke up and there were about 3 doctors around me with my MRI scan results. So they went through that with me and explained where it was, what was going on. They obviously didn't know what kind of tumour it was at that point. They wouldn't have known until after the surgery when they can do a biopsy. But they kept me in for 4 days and sent me home with lots of medication to take, steroids and various things that instantly got rid of all my headaches, which was really nice. And then I was sent home with all the medication. And we just will be in contact when we got the surgery date, which they estimated was going to be about 2 weeks. I can't remember. I've probably got paperwork through that said it was going to be on a certain date, but then had a phone call from one of the admin team that said, sorry, with all the urgent cases that they get at John Radcliffe, they needed to push it back another week, which at the time was quite sort of upsetting and disappointing to hear because I just wanted the surgery to be done. And then that was that part of the journey done. And then I could focus on the next bit. I mean, it was just a week in the end that it was delayed, but a week does make a big difference when you've been told such a huge sort of shocking news like you've got a brain tumour kind of thing. But my brain was just thinking, oh, we just need to deal with this one step at a time. We've got the medication. There's no more pain, but we now focus on when the surgery is going to be and wait for the the surgery, wait for the confirmed date. We did get a confirmed date in the end, so it ended up being almost 3 weeks later. It was on Wednesday, the 8th of July, that I finally had my surgery, and they were able to take the majority of it out. First MRI scan that they did when I was taken there from Northampton's A&E showed that it was about the size of like a table tennis ball, about that big kind of thing, and it was squashed a little bit, and it was about here-ish. There's a left frontal tumour. So I think they did show me on the first MRI scans exactly where it was and things like that, but first MRI scan I'd ever really seen, so it didn't really mean much to me at that point. I've seen plenty more now, so obviously more familiar with what goes on and things in your head. So yeah, 3 weeks later, I had the surgery to have it removed, kept in until the Friday when I was allowed to go home, because the surgeons needed to review another MRI scan, which should have been done on the Thursday, but there were no available time slots, so I had to wait till first thing on the Friday. One of the porters came to come and collect me in a wheelchair, and I was in the middle of eating my breakfast, my bowl of cereal, and I was like, I need to take it with me because I'm really hungry. He was bringing me through all the little corridors and things to where my ward was compared to where MRI department was, and I was quite happy eating my cereal. that was a gave me a bit of entertainment in my stay at the John Radcliffe, because the ward was a high dependency ward as well, so weren't really allowed to have visitors. I wasn't allowed to go out and get any fresh air, even if I had a chaperone with me. It was a big no, and I ended up walking up and down the corridors just for something to do, because I'm not someone that can just sit and do nothing. I had the MRI scan. I had to wait until the surgeons had finished whatever surgery they were doing that day so that they can review it. And mid-afternoon, one of the nurses came and told me that I could go home. And I was very happy that I could go home. When my husband came to come and pick me up, he looked at me and he was like, oh my word, who gave you that black eye? Because lovely black eye round here. My hands and my wrists were all covered in bruises. It was sort of really swollen and things like that. And where the stitches went, they went from the top of my head here all the way down this side to just below my ear. And I said to my husband, I said, I can't wait to have a decent meal at home, but I will take about an hour to eat it, because I couldn't move my jaw very much with the stitches. I didn't want to sort of, irritate anything. So yeah, it was just nice to be at home in your own bed. You can, watch something rubbish on telly and just have a bit of normality for a little while. So it was fine. I had a phone call from the surgeon a week later maybe, or a couple of weeks. I can't remember now. It was quite a while ago. And they were describing how much they've managed to remove. They couldn't remove quite as much as they wanted to, because it would have started interfering with hand-eye coordination. And with the job that I had, or I still have, in graphic design, I'm also a freelance trampoline coach. So obviously, movement and hand-eye coordination is quite important to me. So, and they'd sent it for biopsy at that point as well. So they said it was a glioblastoma multiforme. I never remember if it's grade or stage that they call it, but it was 4. So it was most common and most aggressive that I had in my head. But they transferred all my aftercare, as they termed it, so radiotherapy and chemo, to Northampton General Hospital. So it was a case of oncology then getting in touch with me once they got all my notes, and then organising sort of an initial sort of introduction appointment kind of thing, so that I got to meet my senior consultant. He explained what would happen next. I'd have 30 sessions of radiotherapy alongside the temozolomide chemo tablets, which would help enhance the effects of the radiotherapy. Having radiotherapy didn't bother me. It was just the fact that you couldn't move, which is fair enough. I totally understand how it worked and things like that. But it was just the fact that having a mask millimeters from your face is quite claustrophobic. And you're not in the radiotherapy room for very long, but it's the fact that you're laid on that horrible plastic kind of bed. You got your mask fitted on you, which is then quite restrictive. And because mine have been sort of fitted around my face at the start of August, and my radiotherapy didn't start till the end of August, they're all put in cold storage, and therefore it wasn't warm, it wasn't rigid, and when they were fitting it for my first radiotherapy session, it was actually cutting into my throat and I almost couldn't breathe. And I had to say, no, take it off, take it off, take it off. I can't breathe. That's probably one of the only times that I was just like really, not necessarily panicky, but a bit anxious as to, I don't know if I can go 30 sessions with this mask on me, but I managed to do it. So it wasn't a nice experience, but the effects from it and all the MRI scans that I then had after that showed that it was really working in my system really well. I was on a low dosage of chemotherapy tablets, those throughout the 30 sessions of radiotherapy that I had. And then I had a break from them for about a month. And then they wanted to increase the dosage of that for November. I think it was up to 75% dosage strength by then. I was then taking them for 5 days, I think it was. And then they wanted to increase the dosage to the full 100% strength in December. And they wanted me to continue those into 2021. I had to have a blood test before being allowed to go and pick up the chemotherapy tablets from the hospital pharmacy. And in January, I had a blood test. They said, no, the levels aren't quite right. They didn't quite describe it at that point. They just said, the levels aren't quite right. Come next week for a blood test. So I had another one. They said, no, the levels still aren't quite right for chemo tablets. Come back next week. So I had a third one. And at that point, my senior consultant got involved. Don't think he called me. He might have called me, or one of his secretary might have called me. And she said, he said, I can't honestly remember who it was. My neutrophils and platelet levels were completely rock bottom. If we give you any more chemo tablets, you're going to end up getting really poorly and you're going to end up back in hospital, which we obviously don't want and you don't want. So we're just going to leave you alone. So, and they said, we'll just monitor you with MRI scans every 3 months. It was at that point. It's now been increased to every 4 months. And I haven't had to have any chemo tablets since. The chemo tablets, when I was taking them, I didn't really get that many side effects from them, apart from I had no taste at all. So everything that I used to enjoy eating just had no taste. Everything was bland. But after I stopped taking them, the taste slowly came back and I could enjoy food again. A couple more MRI scans when they said that the residual tumour in my head was really shrinking quite significantly, that they were quite surprised at seeing that. It kind of then all made sense that it was a good choice to stop having the chemo tablets and just let the radiotherapy that was in my system just continue what it needed to do. And I read on good old internet that the effects of the radiotherapy should last between sort of 9 and 12 months after you stop having radiotherapy, but mine continued for a bit longer than that, which is why they kept saying, well, it's shrunk again. We don't know what you're doing, but just keep on doing it, because whatever you're doing is working, and therefore everything is pretty, they were happy with what had happened and things like that. So they were like, yeah, good decision. I don't want other people to have to go through what I've been through and what my husband's had to go through and my parents and my in-laws have seen and things like that. So I did have a look online at the different kind of brain tumour charities that are around and came across Brain Tumour Research. And having grown up in Milton Keynes, Brain Tumour Research have one of their offices that is in Milton Keynes within walking distance of the house that I grew up in. So I kind of termed it as, yes, they are my local charity, and that's who I'm going to see if I can fundraise for. So I contacted them. Really friendly, really lovely people that worked there. Straight away they were interested in my story, what I wanted to try and do, try and obviously sort of raise more awareness. My colleagues at work didn't have a clue what was going on until I sort of allowed senior management to tell them. And sort of, with social media and just talking to people, you just come across stories and you realise that things like this are more common than they should be, which isn't a good sort of statistic, but it is what it is at the minute. So yeah, I wanted to get involved in doing something for brain tumour research. I've sort of really enjoyed volunteering, fundraising, doing their Wear a Hat Day, the Walk of Hope, their different monthly challenges that they have. But the first fundraising I did for them was actually my own challenge that I came up with, which I call Cat's Crazy Charity Challenge, because it was very crazy. lots of people kind of said to me, "Are you sure you're going to achieve this?" And I was like, "Yes." I was, very headstrong that I was definitely going to achieve what I wanted to. So a year after my diagnosis, so the 12th of June 2021, I started out on Cat's Crazy Charity Challenge, which was to cover 1,206.20 kilometres, coinciding with my diagnosis day, for 17 weeks, which will coincide with my last treatment day of radiotherapy. So I wanted to cover that distance, walking, cycling, doing stuff at the gym like rowing, things like that. I included my trampolining lessons and my coaching sessions in that as well. Included walking with friends and family. My dad, my mum, and one of my aunts was very keen to join me and sort of just get involved and wear all the bright pink and various colours of brain tumour research. So it was good fun and exhausting. It was nice to get out on my bike as well, mostly doing sort of laps of the residential area that I live in, or down at the local park where there's a big sort of massive big fields that you can sort of cycle around, and they sort of lead to little villages on the outskirts of Northampton. And I managed to achieve the distance with 6 days to spare. So I actually went over the distance, but it was nice to finally get that distance when my watch was buzzing at me to say, yes, you got that at distance done. And I kept adding it to my spreadsheet, and it was just like, yeah, I've gone over it. So I had a little celebration with myself. I'd achieved that. Brain Tumour Research contacted me early in 2023, informing me that through all the various fundraising that I'd done, volunteering, helping collect with Brain Tumour Research buckets in the Centre MK, and just, various other challenges that I've been involved with, like 10,000 steps a day in February, the Wear a Hat Days, the Walk of Hope, and there's another one, cycling in August when we have nice weather. Not always guaranteed in the UK. I'd read about these Centres of Excellence on Brain Tumour Research's website, and they contacted me saying that I had raised enough money to fund 2 days of research at one of these centres, and they have a wall of hope. Everything's of hope. They invited me to choose which Centre of Excellence I wanted to go to, and I could choose which wording I wanted on my tile. And I chose Queen Mary in London because there were specialists researching glioblastomas, which obviously sort of, related quite nicely to the tumour that I have. And my parents and my husband came down on the day with me. We had a nice day out in London, had lunch, walked around a bit, and then headed off to the Centre of Excellence, where we had a tour of the lab. We could speak to some of the researchers that were doing lots of very confusing and complicated work. I didn't really understand a word of it, but they were very, very qualified and, really into doing all this research to try and sort of, find different ways of helping either with treatments or a more early diagnosis for some people. And at the end of your tour, you then are led to the Wall of Hope, where you put your tile on wherever you want on the wall. There's a big grid that you can just choose which one you want to put your tile on, and you sort of peel off the backing and you stick it on and have photos taken and things like that. And it's just like, it was a nice thing to achieve. And, nice to sort of visit the centre and be part of the tour. Other people there that had unveiled their tiles for, either themselves or family members that maybe were no longer with them. And it was just sort of nice to be in that sort of environment where, everyone else had been on a similar journey, and we're just sort of really pleased that they'd been able to do that and sort of try and just help with sort of raising awareness. Following on from Cat's Crazy Charity Challenge, kept a spreadsheet of all the distances I did each day, I think it was. And I sort of separated the spreadsheet, walking, cycling, things I'd done at the gym and things like that, so that I could add it all up. And with the various things that I did each week that I could remember, and I'd taken photos or selfies and things like that, I thought, I'm going to make a book. Having worked, I still work in graphic design, and I've got sort of all the software on my computer and things. I thought I'd make a book. It kind of starts with my journey here. So I wrote sort of everything that had happened with the run up to my diagnosis, which I've already spoken about. And then I kind of just went week by week with lots of lovely selfies of me and various other things. So, during the challenge, I celebrated my birthday. My dad joined me for a couple of things. My mum both my parents joined me on a few walks and things like that. And there was one week where my dad and I did an epic, as we called it, bike ride. It was a huge distance we covered. And I will try and find it, bear with. Yeah, here. So week 13, where my weekly distance that week was 155.22 kilometres. So my dad and I cycled a lot around Milton Keynes. My dad wanted to find the Iron Trunk Aqueduct, which is on the Grand Union Canal. And we went to Willen Lake. We went across the old railway that goes from Wolverton up to Newport Pagnell. There used to be a track there. There is no longer a track, but it's part of their National Cycle Network, which was really nice to see. And it kind of just detailed all the weekly distances. And there was one week where I didn't have any photos, and because I just done everything by myself, but I had been stopped on a bike ride by a man walking his black Labrador. So I thought, okay, so I'm going to use that week to actually write about the centres of excellence so that I could educate everyone. I had a copy of my self-published book just to sort of explain the centres of excellence that brain tumour research have and what they do, what they specialise in and things like that. Yeah, sort of made this myself, which took quite a while. I gave a copy to brain tumour research as well, and then they had an article on their website about it. But I just thought, it was such a massive thing to be told. You got a brain tumour, they're incurable, you're never going to hear remission or clear or anything like that. And having done this big challenge that I'd thought up myself, I was really pleased with what I'd achieved. And I kind of made the book more for myself than anyone else, because I just wanted to sort of read back on it every now and again and just enjoy looking at the distance that I managed to do each week, looking at the photos that I took. I was quite fortunate to have really nice weather, apart from only a couple of days where I was riding my bike and it suddenly decided to absolutely pour with rain, but never mind. It just makes you realise that you made a tough stuff kind of thing. But yeah, I just kind of want to sort of, have a log of all the memories week by week and how I celebrated achieving the distance and things like that. And then when I sort of decided on making it, I was just like, I think, parents should have a copy. My in-laws should have a copy. Those that joined me on walks and anything else I was doing should sort of, have a look at it and be involved as well. So yeah, I quite enjoyed making it. It was nice to have something to do, and again, it's raising awareness for the charity and for brain tumours in general and things like that. I do have to thank my husband, because I wouldn't have been able to do this journey without him, and he's still on my side even now, and he's the one that makes me laugh.
This is the Aunty and Brain Tumours talk show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Aunty and Brain Tumours talk show on podcast.